Hi, my name is Dr. Nathan Groot. I am a music instructor at the Arkansas School for Mathematics, Sciences, and the Arts, where I teach string ensemble and applied string lessons among other music courses. Today we're going to be looking at number 134, Hatikvah, in the All for Strings Book 3. This is a part of the concert orchestra audition for the North region of the state for Arkansas All Region in 2023 and all other odd-numbered years. We are given a tempo here, quarter note equals 96. Be sure to observe that. Take notice of the key. We have one flat, and that means we could either be in F major or D minor. So taking a look at it, let's see, what note do we end on? Do we have any C sharps anywhere? We don't really have any C sharps, but we are more likely in D minor. So let's play a D natural minor scale. Starting on D, D, E, F natural, G, A, B flat, C natural, D, and back. So this is our finger pattern on our D string. This is our finger pattern on our A string. The trickiest thing about this excerpt is probably going to be the shifting. So let's sort of just take a look at each of those instances where we use shifting and also where we use harmonics and just sort of break those down one by one. The very first measure includes some shifting from F natural to G. So really quickly, just some very basics of shifting. As you shift, you want to make sure that all of this is moving as one unit up. From this side, this is what it looks like. The thumb isn't getting left behind or going ahead, and neither is the finger. Everything is moving as one unit. Make sure that you're not still pressing the string down as you move. That will hinder your shift. So just allow your finger to glide on the string without any finger pressure. That way you're still getting that tactile feedback of your finger touching the string, which will help you remember sort of in space where that shift is and train your brain or your muscles through your brain to know where to land there. Now for this shift in particular, an F natural in first position to a G in third position, I would recommend adding, as you practice, an intermediate note or a guide tone. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I would add a note that isn't actually between these two notes, but we're going to add it just for the sake of practice. So we go from F natural, first finger E, slowly shift up, so you lift up the finger pressure, everything moves. As you come up to the G, let the G come down. Test it with your G string if you need to, or with a tuner to make sure that it's in tune. So as we practice this, kind of out of rhythm, it's sort of helping us think less about fingers and more about just moving a hand, a first finger to a first finger from first to third. So we're just moving this as a unit. So obviously you won't actually be playing that E. As we start speeding this up, you're going to be making this action shorter and shorter and shorter until you're able to start moving and just be thinking about that first finger that's behind your second finger as you come up here. So then in the second measure, we're in third position. We have this harmonic here. First, find your A. and then find your harmonic. If you need to, you can build up. Just flatten out your fourth finger just like I did. So normally our fourth finger would be right on the tip like that. And then if you flatten it in third position, you should be able to find that harmonic without actually like throwing the hand out of whack or anything. That's the important thing, is when we find this harmonic, try to keep your hand frame as stable as possible. Now you will have to lift your other fingers off the string in order for the harmonic to sound, but you don't want all your fingers to go out like this, because then how are you going to find your note again? The other thing is, as you play harmonics, you might have to use just a little bit more bow speed to make it sound clearly. So experiment with that, and if you're having trouble making that harmonic sound, make sure that you're using enough speed and that your finger is right on where that harmonic is. So if you wanted to break this down, I would start it on up bow, B, D harmonic, and then down bow A. So let's try that. Just sort of practicing getting to that harmonic and then getting back to the A. So just move as little as you can when you bump that harmonic with your fourth finger so that you can go right back to that A. We go back to first position in the next measure, and then we have the same material again in measures 5 and 6. Now, measure 9 and measure 11 really test your ability to, number one, find the harmonic, and then number two, shift back down to first position and play a third finger perfectly in tune. Why does it have to be perfectly in tune? Because you're playing a D harmonic and then you're playing a D on the A string, and if they don't match, it's gonna sound really obvious to anyone listening. So finding this harmonic, try shifting up, allowing your hand to hit the bout of the instrument, and then putting your fourth finger down, and see if that's close for you. All of us have different lengths of fingers, but this can be a good way to sort of find where that harmonic is for you. So you might get that sound if you're not quite high or low enough. Once you find it, try finding it a couple of times, and then see if you can go from first position to the harmonic without any fingers touching the strings 5 times in a row, or even 10 times in a row. And if you're able to do it a bunch of times in a row, then try incorporating it into the piece and see if it still stays that accurate. Once we have this harmonic, we can then move down to first position. You can allow just a very slight break there. Number one, because the harmonic will keep ringing, and it'll allow you to get down here, go 1, 3. I wouldn't recommend just going 3 and hope that it's in the right place. Use your other fingers as a foundation, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 3. So practice going back and forth between fourth finger harmonic, third finger, fourth finger. Use a metronome to gradually increase the speed of going between those notes and see if you can keep those as accurate in pitch as possible. In measure 13 and 14, I would use a similar approach with guide tones and intermediate notes. E, up to G. Here I'd use another one down, G to E. So using that intermediate note to help us get from one place to another is going to make your shift cleaner, smoother, and have you thinking more about positions rather than individual pitches. Make sure that you do the repeat correctly there on the last line. So we get to 13, we go to the first ending, back to 13, and then we go 3 measures and then skip to the second ending. So make sure that's really clear for you before you go into the audition. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the bow. So we have a bow here. We have some bow variables that we can use. We have weight, which is how much weight is transferred from the arm through the bow and into the string, allowing the string to vibrate. We have speed, so the rate of speed and how much bow you're using. And we have contact point, which is where between the bridge and the fingerboard your bow is located. Contact point closer to the bridge is typically going to be a little louder and a different timbre, different tone quality. Heavier bow, so more weight, is generally going to be more sound, and more speed is usually going to be more sound. So using those is going to help us achieve the dynamics and the type of sound that we want throughout this piece. This piece has a ton of dynamic changes, and whenever you have that in an audition piece, make sure that you're making those extremely clear and even exaggerating them almost past the level that you think they should be exaggerated. Because ultimately what we're doing up here under our head that we can hear super clearly, once that gets to the judges or the adjudicators' ears, they might not be hearing those differences quite as much as you are. It's like on stage at a play or an opera, where up close the makeup looks exaggerated and insane, but then when you're in the audience it looks normal because you're far away. It's the same thing for us musicians when we are dealing with dynamics and musical ideas. We need to exaggerate them more even than we think we might need to do. So let's look at a couple examples. Let's just look at the beginning. We start out at mezzo forte, so somewhere in the middle, right? Middle contact point, middling weight, middling speed. And then we have a crescendo to forte. So we have gradually applying more weight and inching closer to the bridge. And by the time we reach that A, we should be considerably louder than we were at the very beginning. I know this is just a change from mezzo forte to forte, so we shouldn't play it as if it's pianissimo to fortissimo, but make sure that you're bringing this out so that right out of the gate, whoever's listening thinks, wow, this person's really paying attention to these dynamics. And then just take what we did there with increasing weight and speed and changing the contact point and put it in reverse when we have the decrescendo 2 measures later. Then we do the same thing again. Now, importantly, going from measure 8 to measure 9, we have this decrescendo, which takes us from forte to a softer dynamic, and then we have forte again. This is a subito dynamic, a subito forte, suddenly forte. So starting in measure 7, getting quieter, and then we need to change our contact point and weight and speed so that we go from a soft dynamic very suddenly to a loud dynamic. Now we have another subito dynamic change in 2 measures later, where we go, here's the forte in measure 9. Change contact point, closer to the fingerboard, less weight, less speed. Importantly, different parts of the bow can help or hinder us in our efforts with dynamic contrast. This part of the bow is heavier, our hand is heavier, and gravity is more on our side here. So louder is easier to do lower in the bow, generally, and softer is a little easier to do towards the tip of the bow. So this is a tricky bowing to do this with. It would be ideal if the piano section started up bow, but it doesn't. So we have to make do with what we have. So I would recommend trying to make your way out to the tip without accenting anything or making anything louder than it needs to be. At the very end, make sure you have a little bit of a ritardando, so slowing down just a little bit in that last measure. Otherwise, make sure that your beat is really steady. Make sure that you are practicing this with a metronome. I would start considerably slower than 96 to make sure that everything is clean and clear, and then gradually build up to 96. This next part of the video, I'm going to take you through different tempos, starting from 60 and going up to 96, which is our goal tempo. Quick disclaimer, make sure that as you are practicing this, if you choose to practice with this video, make sure that you are stopping, analyzing what you're doing, really listening to how you're sounding. If there's anything that's not working at a certain tempo, stop the video, go isolate that spot, work through it, do some problem solving, and find a way to fix that spot before moving on. Because if you just let issues and mistakes stay as you practice at different tempos, they sort of get baked in and become really hard to fix later. So make sure that before you increase a tempo, you're totally happy with how you're playing it at the slower tempo. All right, we're gonna start out at 60 and work our way up to 96. As you're playing this, make sure that you are trying your best to include all of the dynamics and that all the notes and shifts and harmonics are coming out as clearly as you want them. So here's 60. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. This is 70. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. This is 80. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. This is 90. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. And this is our goal tempo of 96. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and... So I hope that this video was somewhat helpful for you. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, comments, feel free to leave them below this video in the comments or reach out to me directly through my website or social media. I'd love to hear from you. I wish you the very best of luck in your upcoming audition, and as always, happy practicing.